Alright, so today's lesson is on estimating sums, and so your objective is you will be able to decide whether estimation is an appropriate way to solve the problem. So before we begin, let's go over some key words. So key word for today's lesson is estimation, which is using rounding to get a general idea of the answer. So you're not getting an exact answer, you're getting an estimation. So let's do a warm-up problem together. So if I asked you to solve the problem 372 plus 493, and I wanted you to estimate it, I want you to think and pause the video. How would you estimate this problem? What would you round? Remembering that when we do estimating, we're doing some form of rounding. So if you were going to the store and you wanted to buy a new TV for $372 and a new Xbox for $493, and you had to estimate to make sure you had the right amount of money with you, how would you estimate it? What would you round? Pause the video right now and give it a try. See how you would estimate it before we go through it together. Alright, well, when I estimate, I kind of always like to have more than what I would need rather than not enough. So I usually estimate like the biggest place value and kind of round based on what I'm noticing. So for 372, I'm going to look at rounding the 300, and I'm going to look next door to see I have a 7. So that's bigger than 5. So I'm going to round my 300 to 400. And then the same as for the 4 in 493, I'm going to look at the 9 next to it, and I know that 9 is bigger than 5, so that 4 is going to be rounded up to 500. And then I'm going to add them together. 400 plus 500 would get 900. So that is how I would estimate this problem. Let's do a few more practice problems together. So if I gave you 1,125 plus 3,364, and I asked you to estimate it to the nearest thousand, go ahead and do that estimation right now. So you would probably look at, let's start with 1,125 first, and let's round it to the nearest thousand, or estimate it to the nearest thousand. Well, we're going to look at the one right next to it. We're going to know that 1,000, or that 1 is less than 5, so that 1,125 is going to round to 1,000. And then we're going to look at this 3,364, and we're going to look at the 3 next door. And 3 is less than 5, so we're going to keep it the same, so we're going to round that to 3,000. And so 3,000 plus 1,000 is going to get us to 4,000. Now in this case, since we rounded down for both, we're going to probably be under our actual problem. But that's how we would estimate for this if we were estimating to the thousands. Now, what if I gave you the following problem? What if I gave you 749 plus 845 plus 321, and I want you to find the sum, estimate the sum of all of them. And what if I ask you to write it in the form of first I'm going to ask you to do a number sentence. I left my stylus at school, so my writing isn't the best. Okay, so if I ask you to write a number sentence for me, this means that I want you to actually take your estimation and write it in written form, and it would probably look something like this. So I'm going to do it exactly for you, and the reason I'm doing this is because in your Google form you're going to have to do after this video, it's going to ask you to write a number sentence, and I want to make sure you know what a number sentence is. What is it looking for? So let's look at 749, and we're going to estimate the 700, and we're going to look at the 49. 4 is less than 5. So I'm going to do 740 actually 700, excuse me. 700 plus, all right, we're going to look at that 8 again, plus 800 plus 300. So that's a number sentence. That's what my number sentence is. So when it asks you to write a number sentence, it wants you to write out your estimate in number sentence form. And then we're going to solve it. So I know 7 plus 3 is going to get me to 10, or 700 plus 300 is going to get me to 1,000, plus another 800 would get me 1,800. Okay, so that's how we would solve that. Now, there are going to be some problems on the Google form that are going to ask you specifically if it is above a certain amount, you need to solve the actual problem. So make sure you use your whiteboard and do the math like you would, adding up not an estimation, but adding up the exact amount. All right, so you have finished today's lesson. So go ahead and go into the Google form. And you are finished with lesson 5.3.